The Silence of Giants Galactic Council Chambers, Hexara Station. 2 weeks after first contact with the sea-thick swarm, the holographic display showed worlds dying in real time. Valoran Prime, jewel of the outer reach, was being consumed. Not conquered, consumed. The Kethic swarm didn't occupy territory or demand surrender. They simply arrived, fed, and moved on, leaving nothing but stripped husks of planets behind. 3 billion Valoran souls screamed into the void. Their transmissions flooded every channel. Desperate pleas in 100 languages, all saying the same thing. Help us, please. Someone help us. The council chamber, a magnificent amphitheater carved from a living asteroid, capable of holding representatives from 200 species, had never been so quiet. High Chancellor Vexith of the Kramari hegemony, his crystalline form refracting the light of dying worlds, was the first to speak. His voice carried the weight of 12,000 years of civilization. The motion is clear. Military intervention on behalf of the Valoran people. All in favor? Silence. Opposed? One by one, the delegates activated their refusal signals. Red lights bloomed across the chamber like a field of blood flowers. The Thelian Concordat, masters of energy manipulation, who could have turned the swarm's own momentum against it, refused. The Margish Collective, bioengineers who had defeated 3 extinction-level plagues, refused. The Korvax Empire, whose armada once held back the Void Raiders for a decade, refused. Even the Ashira, who shared a common ancestry with the Valorans, chose fear over kinship, refused. 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 Ambassador Marcus Webb watched it all from the human delegation's modest platform, positioned, as always, in the outer ring where the younger species sat. His jaw tightened with each red light, his knuckles white against the railing. Beside him, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in full-dress uniform, her face an unreadable mask. But Webb knew her well enough to see the fury in the way she held herself, coiled, ready, barely restrained. "They're going to let them die," she whispered. "They already have," Webb replied. Chancellor Vexith's voice echoed through the chamber. "The motion fails. The Council's official position is one of neutrality. The thick swarm has not attacked any Council member worlds. We have no legal standing to—" "No legal standing?" The voice cut through the chamber like a blade through silk. Every delegate turned. Marcus Webb stepped forward, his footsteps impossibly loud in the vast space. Behind him, his small delegation, just 5 humans, stood as one. "Ambassador Webb," Vexith's tone carried a warning. "The vote has concluded. The matter is that 3 billion people are dying while we debate legal standing." Webb's voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "I've been on this council for 8 years. 8 years of listening to speeches about galactic unity, shared prosperity, the responsibility of advanced civilizations to shepherd the younger ones." He gestured at the holographic display, where another Valoran city vanished beneath a tide of chittering darkness. "Where's that responsibility now?" Delegate Cormath of the Korvax Empire rose, his armor gleaming. "Human, you speak from ignorance. The Kethic swarm has consumed 17 civilizations in the past millennia. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be stopped. They are a force of nature." "They're bugs," Admiral Chen interrupted, stepping forward to stand beside Webb. "Big ones, granted, but nothing we haven't faced before." A ripple of what might have been laughter or offense moved through the assembly. "You claim you could defeat an enemy that has destroyed species millions of years older than yours?" Vexith's crystals dimmed with what Webb had learned to recognize as skepticism. "Humanity has been spacefaring for barely 2 centuries, which means we remember what it's like to fight for survival," Webb said quietly. "You've all been safe for so long you've forgotten what it costs." "We've forgotten nothing," snapped Ambassador Quelith of the Ashira, her feathers bristling. "We remember that the Kethic swarm cannot be killed, only survived. We remember that every species that has stood against them has been annihilated. We remember—" "You remember how to rationalize cowardice," Chen said flatly. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in a dozen languages. Security drones descended from the ceiling. Vexith's crystals flashed angry crimson. Webb raised his hand, and somehow, impossibly, the chaos began to settle. Perhaps it was the look in his eyes. Perhaps it was the quiet certainty in his posture. Or perhaps, for the first time, the ancient species of the galaxy recognized something they'd forgotten. the look of a predator deciding whether to strike. "I'm not here to insult you," Webb said. "I'm here to give you one last chance to be the civilizations you claim to be. The Valorans are dying, right now, while we stand here in our pretty chamber, safe behind our shields and our fleets." He turned slowly, meeting the eyes or optical sensors, or consciousness fields of every delegate in turn. "I'm asking you, one final time, will anyone stand with humanity to save them?" The silence that followed was absolute. Chancellor Vexith's voice was almost gentle. "Ambassador Webb, we understand your passion, but humanity lacks both the military strength and the strategic understanding to confront the swarm. This would not be a noble sacrifice, it would be suicide." "And for what? A species you've never even met?" Marcus Webb looked at Admiral Chen. She nodded once, sharp and decisive. He turned back to the council. "Then let the record show that humanity requested military support from this council, and was denied. Let it show that we asked the great species of this galaxy to honor their principles, and they chose fear instead." Webb's voice dropped, but somehow it filled every corner of that vast chamber. "And let it show that when no one else would act, Earth did." He touched his communication device. "Admiral Chen, send the order." "The fleet deploys immediately." 47 ships, Vexith said, and now his tone held something like pity. "Against a swarm that has consumed worlds." "Ambassador, this is not courage. This is justice," Webb interrupted. "And we don't need permission from cowards to deliver it." The human delegation turned as one and walked toward the exit. Behind them, the council chamber remained frozen in shock. As they reached the doorway, Webb paused and looked back one final time. "When the Kithic swarm comes for you, and it will eventually, remember this moment. Remember that you taught the galaxy a species only deserves help if they're strong enough not to need it." Admiral Chen's voice was steel. "And remember that humanity taught it something different." The doors closed behind them with a finality that echoed like a gunshot. In the observation gallery, hidden among the shadows where junior diplomats and observers watched the proceedings, a young Thelian named Sareth leaned forward, his energy field flickering with something the galaxy hadn't seen in a very long time. "Hope. Earth Fleet Command, Luna Station." 6 hours later. The transmission reached every news network, every data stream, every corner of human-controlled space simultaneously. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the ESS Indomitable, humanity's newest battle carrier, surrounded by 46 other warships. Everything Earth could spare without leaving Sol system defenseless. "People of Earth, people of the colonies, people of the galaxy who might be watching," she began. "In 3 hours, this fleet will enter Valoran space. We go to face an enemy that the galaxy calls unstoppable. We go outnumbered, outgunned, and with no support from the species that claim to stand for civilization." She paused, and the camera captured something fierce in her eyes. "We go anyway, because we're human, and humans don't abandon people to die just because it's dangerous. We don't calculate the odds before doing what's right. We don't need permission to show mercy." Behind her, the fleet began to move, engines flaring like newborn stars. The council asked what 47 ships can do against an enemy like this. They're about to find out. When humanity answers an atrocity, we don't answer with words or votes or diplomatic protests. The Indomitable's main engines ignited, brilliant blue against the infinite dark. We answer with total force. The transmission ended. 47 ships entered hyperspace, racing toward a doomed world and an enemy that had never known defeat. Aboard each vessel, the crew worked with quiet efficiency. No speeches. No grand proclamations, just humans doing what humans had always done when faced with impossible odds, figuring out how to win anyway. Into the Swarm S Indomitable, bridge approaching Valoran space, T-minus 30 minutes to combat. The silence on the bridge was broken only by the steady pulse of sensor readings and the low hum of the ship's reactor. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the tactical display, her eyes scanning the three-dimensional battlefield that awaited them. It was worse than the intelligence report suggested. "Status report," she ordered. Commander Jackson, her tactical officer, pulled up the latest scans. "Ma'am, we're reading approximately 40,000 individual thick organisms in orbit around Valoran Prime. Classification ranges from fighter class, roughly the size of our corvettes, to what we're designating as behemoths." "Those are He paused, recalculating. Roughly 12 kilometers long. Jesus, someone muttered. There are 7 behemoths, Jackson continued. Dozens of cruiser-class organisms, and the fighter-class swarm is so dense it's interfering with our sensors. It's like trying to count individual raindrops in a hurricane. Chen didn't flinch. Valorant survivors? Scattered pockets on the surface. Underground bunkers mostly. Best estimate, 200 million still alive. But the swarm is systematically breaching each shelter. At current rates, Jackson's voice tightened. 72 hours until complete planetary consumption. Then we have 72 hours to make them stop. Captain Martinez, commander of the escort carrier ESS Defiance, appeared on the comm screen. Admiral, with respect, we can't hold against those numbers. Even if every shot we fire kills a dozen of them, the math doesn't work. The math never works, Chen replied calmly. Which is why we're not fighting a math problem. We're fighting a biology problem. She expanded the tactical display, highlighting the behemoths. Every swarm needs a queen, a hive mind, something coordinating the attack pattern. Watch their movement. The display replayed the last hour of swarm activity. 40,000 individual organisms, each the size of a ship, moving in what should have been chaos, but it wasn't chaos. See it? Chen pointed to the largest behemoth positioned at the center of the formation. Everything rotates around that one. Every attack wave launches from its position. Every feeding pattern radiates outward from its location. Commander Jackson leaned forward. You think that's the command organism? I think that's our target. Chen's smile was predatory. We kill that and maybe the rest become disorganized enough for us to fight. And how exactly do we get close enough to kill something that size when we have to go through 40,000 of its friends first? Martinez asked. Admiral Chen pulled up a file that made several bridge officers go pale. We use the Wolves. ESS Fenrir, stealth frigate 15 minutes to contact Lieutenant. Commander Adrian Kozlov checked his restraints for the 3rd time. Around him, the other 11 crew members of the Fenrir were doing the same. Everyone knew what was coming. The Wolves, officially designated as the Shadow-class stealth frigates, were humanity's answer to a simple question. How do you fight an enemy with overwhelming numbers? Answer: you don't fight them. You bypass them. All Wolves report status. Came Chen's voice over the secure channel. One by one, the 6 stealth frigates checked in. Fenrir, Akela Amarok, Asena, Gary Frecky, 6 ships, 72 crew members total. Their mission was simple in concept, suicidal in execution: penetrate the swarm, reach the behemoth, plant nuclear charges directly into its hull and get out. Assuming, of course, that you could hide a spaceship from organisms that hunted by sensing electromagnetic fields, heat signatures, and gravitational distortions. Stealth systems to maximum, Kozlov ordered. Communications silence until we're clear or compromised. God help anyone who accidentally sneezes too loud. Nervous laughter rippled through the crew. The Fenrir was already running cold, reactor output minimized, all non-essential systems offline. Hull coated in adaptive camouflage that bent light and sensor waves around it like water around a stone. They would appear on sensors as nothing more than background radiation. Just another piece of stellar debris in a system full of wreckage. Unless they were detected, in which case, they would appear as very attractive targets that couldn't fight back or run. 2 minutes to insertion, the pilot announced, beginning approach vector. Through the view screen, Valoran Prime grew larger. A beautiful world, or it had been. Now its surface was marred by massive scars where the swarm had stripped entire regions down to bedrock. The oceans were gray with disturbed sediment. The atmosphere flickered with the flames of burning cities, and surrounding it all the swarm. Kozlov had seen the intelligence footage, but nothing prepared him for the reality. Thousands upon thousands of creatures, each one a nightmare of chitin and teeth and purposes that had nothing to do with diplomacy or mercy. They moved like a living fluid, flowing around and through each other in patterns that shouldn't have been possible. Entering the perimeter, the pilot whispered, as if the creatures could hear them through the vacuum. Stealth holding. They're not reacting. The Fenrir slipped into the swarm like a needle into flesh. Around them, thick fighters drifted past, each one close enough to see the details. Compound eyes the size of cars, mandibles that could shear through starship armor, bodies that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that might have been communication, or might have been something humans had no words for. One fighter passed within 50 meters. Kozlov held his breath. It didn't turn. It didn't react. Just kept swimming through space toward another section of the planet. "We're through the outer perimeter," the pilot reported, adjusting course for the behemoth. ETA 8 minutes. 8 minutes of gliding through a sea of teeth, hoping that evolution hadn't given these things better sensors than human technology could fool. ESS Indomitable, Bridge. "The wolves are inside," Commander Jackson reported. "No indication they've been detected." Admiral Chen nodded but didn't relax. The easy part was over. Now came the impossible part. "Battlefleet, this is Indomitable. Execute Operation Prometheus." Across the fleet, 41 warships, everything that wasn't a stealth frigate, changed course. Not toward Valoran Prime, but toward the outer edge of the swarm's formation. "Ma'am, we're not engaging the main force?" an ensign asked. "We're about to engage all of it," Chen replied. "Weapons free. Fire on my mark. Target selection, anything that moves." The fleet's targeting computers locked onto thousands of sea-thick organisms. Railguns charged. Missile bays armed. Energy weapons reached critical capacity. "The wolves need 15 minutes to reach the behemoth and plant their charges," Chen said quietly. "Our job is to make the next 15 minutes so interesting that nothing in the swarm remembers to look for 6 tiny ships in all the chaos." She raised her hand. "All ships." Mark, the darkness of space became day. 41 warships opened fire simultaneously, railgun slugs moving at a significant fraction of light speed, nuclear-tipped missiles, directed energy beams that could cut through starship armor like butter. The outer edge of the swarm simply evaporated. Hundreds of sea-thick fighters vanished in the opening salvo, reduced to expanding clouds of superheated vapor and shattered chitin, and then the swarm noticed them. If Chen had hoped for confusion or disorganization, she was disappointed. The response was immediate and terrifyingly coordinated. Thousands of organisms turned as one, abandoning their siege of Valoran Prime to face this new threat. "Contact," Jackson reported unnecessarily. "Multiple inbound vectors. Conservative estimate, 15,000 hostiles breaking off planetary assault to engage us." "Good," Chen said grimly. "That's 15,000 that aren't looking for our wolves. All ships fighting retreat pattern Delta 7. Make them chase us. Make them work for it." The human fleet began to pull back, firing as they went, but the swarm was faster. The first wave hit the fleet line in under 2 minutes. ESS Thermopylae, destroyer Captain David Park watched death approach at impossible speed. 300 sea-thick fighters, moving in a perfect sphere formation, converging on his position. The Thermopylae's point defense systems were already firing, throwing up a wall of tungsten and explosives. It wasn't enough. The first fighter made it through the defensive screen and slammed into the Thermopylae's starboard side. Not fired a weapon, slammed. Used its own body as a projectile, mandibles extended, tearing through armor like it was paper. Hull breached decks 7 through 9. Someone screamed, "Seal it!" Park roared. "Damage control teams move!" 2 more fighters hit the port side, then 5 more on the dorsal surface. They weren't trying to destroy the ship with weapons. They were trying to tear it apart with their own bodies, rip it into pieces small enough to be consumed. "This isn't a battle," his first officer said, voice hollow. "It's a feeding frenzy." Park grabbed the comm. "All hands, this is the captain. Arm emergency thruster packs. Prepare for hull loss in multiple sections. If we're going down, we're taking as many of these bastards with us as possible." He initiated the ship's self-destruct sequence, then locked it with a 15-minute timer. "Engineering. Route all remaining power to the main gun. I don't care if we burn out the capacitors. 1 shot, maximum yield." "Sir, that'll—" "1 shot? Chief, make it count." The Thermopylae's main railgun, designed for orbital bombardment, never meant to be fired at point-blank range, charged to 100%. Then 110%, then 120%. Thick fighters swarmed over the hull like ants on a carcass. Captain Park aimed manually, targeting the center mass of the swarm converging on his position. "For Earth," he whispered. He fired. The recoil broke the Thermopylae's keel. The railgun slug, moving at 0.15 C, tore through fighters like they weren't there. Dozens evaporated. The kinetic energy that didn't get absorbed by chitin and alien flesh kept going, punching completely through a cruiser-class organism, before finally dissipating kilometers away. The thermopylae broke apart, but its self-destruct still worked. The fusion reactor went critical, vaporizing the ship and everything. Within 200 meters, Captain David Park and his crew of HFY 312 had bought the fleet 45 seconds and eliminated roughly 400 key-thick organisms. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. The destroyer Hastings, the frigate Audacity, the cruiser Unbroken ships died, but they died expensive, making the swarm pay for every meter gained. ESS Fenrir, inside the swarm. Holy shit, someone breathed. Through the view screen, they could see the battle raging at the fleet's position, flashes of light, expanding spheres of plasma. The distinct signature of nuclear detonation. Stay focused, Kozlov snapped. They're buying us time. Don't waste it. The Fenrir was close now. The behemoth filled their entire forward view. A creature so massive it had its own gravitational field. Its surface rippled with bioluminescence. Patterns that might have been communication with the swarm, or might have been the thoughts of a mind so alien humans couldn't comprehend it. 20 kilometers, the pilot reported. 15:10. Prepare boarding charges, Kozlov ordered. On my mark, we punch a hole, insert the package, and run like hell. Sir, there's something you should see, the sensor officer interrupted. The behemoth. It's not just a creature. Look at the internal structure. The screen showed deep penetration scans. Inside the behemoth, beneath kilometers of organic tissue, there were chambers, voids, structures that looked almost artificial. Is that? It's carrying more of them, the sensor officer said quietly. Thousands more. Maybe tens of thousands. The behemoth isn't just commanding the swarm. It's a transport, a factory. It's making more of them as fast as it can deploy them. Kozlov felt ice in his stomach. If they didn't kill this thing, it would keep spawning more swarm indefinitely. The battle at the fleet line wasn't just bad, it was unwinnable in the long term. All the more reason to put nukes in its brain, he said. Range? 5 kilometers, 4-3, contact. Something massive slammed into the Fenrir, sending the frigate spinning. Alarms shrieked. The stealth field collapsed. What hit us? Appendage from the behemoth. It knows we're here. The creature had sensed them somehow. Perhaps detected the heat from their life support. Perhaps felt the vibration of their maneuvering thrusters. It didn't matter how. What mattered was the tendril, easily 300 meters long, that was now wrapped around the Fenrir's hull, pulling them toward a mouth the size of a city block. All hands brace, Kozlov shouted. Pilot, emergency thrusters. Get us clear. Can't break free. It's too strong. Kozlov looked at the nuclear charges they'd brought to plant in the behemoth's hide. Then he looked at the mouth they were being dragged toward. An insane idea formed. Arm all charges, he ordered. Manual detonation, 60-second countdown. Sir? If it wants to eat us, Kozlov said grimly. Let's make sure we give it indigestion. The charge is armed. 60 seconds, open all exterior hatches. Jettison the charges directly at the mouth cavity. Pilot, the moment we're clear. Full emergency burn. Don't look back. 50 seconds. The charges tumbled through space, spinning toward the behemoth's maw. The creature pulled the Fenrir closer, mandibles spreading to receive its prey. 40 seconds. Now. All thrusters now. The Fenrir's engines screamed. Metal groaned. For one terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the tendril, damaged when it struck them, tore apart under the strain. The Fenrir shot away from the behemoth at maximum acceleration, the G-forces pushing everyone to the edge of consciousness despite the inertial dampeners. 20 seconds. Behind them, the nuclear charges tumbled into the behemoth's mouth and down into its internal chambers, where thousands of unborn Kethik fighters waited to be spawned. 10 seconds. Brace for shockwave. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The behemoth detonated from the inside. 12 kilotons of nuclear fury erupted in its core, vaporizing tissue, rupturing organs that had never evolved to deal with fusion reactions. The creature didn't die quickly, nothing that large could. But it died. The light was visible from the fleet, 30,000 kilometers away, and across the battlefield. Something changed. The swarms hesitated. For just a moment, perhaps 5 seconds. Perhaps less. The thousands of organisms stopped moving in perfect coordination. They drifted, confused, like puppets whose strings had been cut. Admiral Chen saw it immediately. All ships, maximum offensive, hit them now while they're disorganized. The human fleet surged forward, pouring fire into the confused swarm. Without the behemoth's coordination, the creatures were just individuals, deadly individuals, but no longer an unstoppable tide. The ESS Indomitable's main battery spoke with thunder, each shot eliminating dozens of fighters. Missiles found targets that no longer dodged with perfect efficiency. Energy beams carved through formations that suddenly forgot how to disperse. Target the cruiser-class organisms, Chen ordered. Without the behemoth, they're the next level of command. Cut off the head and the body dies. It was still a slaughter. Humanity was still outnumbered. Ships still died, their crews making last stands that would never be recorded in any official history. But now, impossibly, they were winning. 3 hours later, Valoran Prime, low orbit, the last Catholic cruiser broke apart under fire from the wounded but unbowed ESS Indomitable. Around it, thousands of fighter-class organisms drifted in space, either dead or dying, their coordination shattered. Some fled into the deep system, scattering like leaves before a storm. Others simply stopped, floated in space, their purpose lost, waiting for orders that would never come. Admiral Sarah Chen surveyed the battlefield from her command chair. Of the 47 ships that had entered Valoran space, 29 remained combat effective. Thousands of crew members had died. The Thermopylae was gone. The Hastings was gone. The Audacity, the Unbroken, the Righteous, the Vigilant, gone. But Valoran Prime still existed. And on its surface, 200 million people who had been waiting to die were sending messages into space. Messages of gratitude, of disbelief, of hope. Commander Jackson pulled up the latest casualty reports. Final tally, ma'am. 6,247 dead, 593 wounded. 18 ships destroyed, 9 more that'll need months of repairs. Chen closed her eyes briefly. Each number was a person. Someone's child, parent, lover, friend. The wolves? Fenrir made it out, barely. Aquila and Gary are heavily damaged but mobile. Amarok, Asina, and Freki? Jackson's voice caught. They bought the others time to escape. They didn't make it. More names for the list. More families to notify. More flag-draped caskets returning to Earth and the swarm. Jackson actually smiled. Dispersed. Disorganized. We're tracking the survivors, but without command organisms, they're just animals. Dangerous animals, but no longer an existential threat. Valoran defense forces can handle cleanup. Chen nodded slowly. They'd done it. Against every odd, every calculation, every species that said it was impossible, they'd done it. A communication request appeared on her screen. Galactic Council Priority Channel. She almost declined it, almost told them to go to hell. Instead, she accepted. Chancellor Vexith's crystalline face appeared, and for once, the ancient being looked unsettled. Admiral Chen, the Council has been monitoring the battle. That is to say, he paused, something Chen had never seen him do. We did not believe victory was possible. Neither did we, Chen replied flatly. We did it anyway. Your casualties are our burden to carry, not yours. You made your choice. We made ours. Vexith was silent for a long moment. The Valoran people are requesting formal alliance with humanity. They wish to pledge their resources, their loyalty, their very existence to the species that saved them when no one else would. We didn't save them for an alliance, Chen said. We saved them because it was right. Yes, Vexith said quietly. We see that now, perhaps the Council has forgotten what right means. It has been a long time since anyone reminded us.